Okay, deep breath. The exam is almost here, and it's time to lock in all that hard work. Welcome to your last-minute crash course. We're about to fly through the entire post-war world and India chapter, making sure every single key point is fresh in your mind for tomorrow. Ready? Let's do this. Yep, you read that right. I know you're probably feeling the pressure, but don't worry, we've got your back. This is all about hitting those high-yield topics, the definitions that always pop up, and the comparisons that examiners love to see. Zero fluff, all killer, no filler. Let's absolutely crush this. So, here's our battle plan. We'll kick off with how the world looked right after World War II, then jump into the Cold War. After that, we'll unpack the non-aligned movement and the UN, zoom in on India's place in all of this, and then finish up with a super fast revision of the things you absolutely have to know. Let's get into it. All right, first stop, the world just after 1945. The biggest war in human history had just ended, and it left behind a planet that was, well, it was completely changed. In a lot of places, it was just broken. I mean, just look at this. This isn't a movie set, this was reality. The aftermath of World War II was pure destruction. That city, Warsaw, 85% of its buildings were just gone. Europe was basically in ruins, and the Soviet Union, my gosh, it was hit so hard it lost about a fifth of its entire population and thousands of factories. The world literally had to be rebuilt from the ground up. So, here's the absolute key takeaway from this period. It was a tale of two worlds. On one side, you have Europe and the USSR, totally devastated. But on the other side, the USA. The war actually pulled America out of the Great Depression. Its industries were roaring, its farms were booming, and it came out of the war as the most powerful nation on Earth. This massive difference is the spark that lights the fire for everything that comes next. Okay, so this economic divide leads us straight into the next big topic, the Cold War. With the old European powers completely weakened, two new giants stepped onto the world stage, the USA and the USSR. And they had very, very different ideas about how the world should work. Now, listen up, because this slide right here is a classic exam question. They love asking you to compare the two sides. So the world basically split into two teams. You had the USA-led bloc, which was all about democratic capitalism, private money, individual rights. And then you had the USSR-led bloc, pushing socialist communism, where the government controls everything and the focus is on equality. Knowing these differences is absolutely crucial. So what exactly was the Cold War? Here's your definition. It was basically a massive standoff, a war of ideas, of spying, of propaganda. But, and this is the most important part to remember, the two superpowers never actually fought each other directly. There was no hot war between them, because they knew that would lead to nuclear annihilation. And how did they square off? They formed these giant military clubs. The USA and its buddies created NATO, and to balance that out, the Soviet Union and its allies formed the Warsaw Pact. You can see it right there on the map. The world was officially split into two heavily armed camps. But wait, if they didn't fight directly, what did they do? Well, they fought through proxy wars. This is another term you've got to know. Instead of fighting each other, the USA and the USSR would just pick opposite sides in smaller wars around the world. So in places like Vietnam or Korea, it was really the two superpowers fighting each other, but indirectly. Now imagine you're a brand new country that just got its independence. You look at these two giant, powerful blocs fighting, and you might think, you know what? I don't want any part of this. And that's exactly what happened. A whole bunch of nations decided to forge a third path. And here they are. These are the leaders who came up with this alternative idea. They were the architects of what became the non-aligned movement, or NAM. And right there, you see India's first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, who was a huge figure in getting this whole thing started. Their message was simple. We're not joining Team USA or Team USSR. We're going to be on our own team. And here's another super common exam question. What were the main goals of NAM? Just remember these three things. Number one, for all the new countries to cooperate with each other. Number two, to try and calm down the Cold War tensions. And number three, the big one, to make sure none of these newly independent countries got bullied into joining one of the military blocs. So, to stop another catastrophe like World War II from ever happening again, the countries of the world came together. They decided to create a new global organization, the United Nations, whose main job was to keep the peace. Now, the most powerful part of the UN is the Security Council.
And you have to know its 5 permanent members, the P5. But don't worry, I've got a killer memory trick for you. Just remember the word FRUCC. That's FRUCC for France, Russia, the UK, China, and the USA. Easy peasy.
So what makes these 5 countries so special? They have veto power. And you have to understand this concept. It basically means that any one of those 5 countries can say no to a major decision and stop the whole thing in its tracks. Even if every other country on the council says yes, a single veto can kill the resolution. It's a huge deal. Okay, let's bring it all back home. How did India navigate this brand new, complicated world? Let's look at our own foreign policy and our relationships with the neighbors. All right, this is a definite must-know for the exam. The absolute cornerstone of India's foreign policy is Panchsheel, the 5 principles. They're all about respecting each other's territory, not meddling in each other's business, not attacking each other, cooperating, and just peacefully coexisting. These principles were supposed to guide our relationship with every country, but they were put to the test almost immediately with China, which led to the 1962 war and decades of tension. And speaking of tensions, principles on paper are one thing, but reality can be very different. This graph tells a really powerful story about India's relationship with Pakistan. The constant conflict, mostly centered around the issue of Kashmir, has meant both countries have spent enormous amounts of money on their militaries. Money that, could have gone to things like schools and hospitals. Woo! We have covered so much ground. So now, let's lock it all in. This is the final stretch, the rapid-fire summary. These are the key points you absolutely, positively have to remember before you walk into that exam room. Okay, let's go. After World War II, the USA and USSR were the new superpowers. The Cold War was an ideological fight, not a shooting war between them. The 2 military teams were NATO, led by the USA, and the Warsaw Pact, led by the USSR. NAM was the third option for new countries who wanted to stay neutral. Decolonization is when colonies became independent. The UN was created to prevent more wars. The P5 members of its Security Council have veto power. The core of India's foreign policy is Panchsheel. The war in 1962 messed up relations with China, and the main issue with Pakistan has always been Kashmir. Got it? Perfect. And that's it. We just covered the whole chapter. You know the key people, the key ideas, and the key events. Walk into that exam hall feeling confident. You've done the work. You are ready for this. You've totally got this. Good luck.